In this WrestleTalk news, Alexa Bliss confused over her WWE booking, an NXT star has been called out for being unsafe, Tempest review of last night's NXT 2.0, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos, because it's the Go Home Dynamite for Revolution tonight, and I get to review it tomorrow on the WrestleTalk podcast channel, and I'm very happy about that.
Support WrestleTalk!
Alexa Bliss's therapy sessions on Raw have been a point of contention amongst fans, with reports indicating that a few segments that were recorded have in fact been stretched out to fill many weeks, leading many to think that naturally she'd be making her return to our screens around WrestleMania time. Then she got announced for Elimination Chamber with absolutely no fanfare whatsoever, was miraculously cured of whatever was going on beforehand thanks to her therapist, before then appearing at Elimination Chamber in exactly the same gimmick that she had before she left. Makes perfect sense to me. But sure, a rushed return back to screen, not the biggest deal in the world. At least we now have Alexa back for the build to WrestleMania. Except she wasn't on Raw, which is confusing. And it seems it wasn't just fans that were confused by the odd booking choice, as Alexa herself has weighed in on Twitter. A fan tweeted her to ask where she was at Raw, to which she responded saying, "Shrug emoji, hashtag where's Alexa," before following that up later with, "Yeah, I don't know, shrug emoji." Which then begs the question, is Alexa actually going to be used at WrestleMania? And if not, why? And if she's not going to be used, then why would she rush back Elimination Chamber? Baffling stuff. And speaking of confusing things, NXT star Duke Hudson defeated Dante Chen on last week's episode of NXT 2.0, winning with a huge razor's edge. But after the NXT Twitter tweeted out a clip of the move yesterday, it was picked up by Lance Storm, who called the move unsafe. Say hello to a concussion, this is not a safe move. This tweet was then liked by a whole host of wrestling names, including Edge, Mick Foley, Happy Corbin, Deonna Purrazzo, Big Swole, Brian Pillman Jr. and more. We'll have to wait and see if Hudson changes up his moveset, as his only appearance on this week's episode was to hug Persia Pirotta, which upset Indy Hartwell for some reason. NXT. But it wasn't Duke Hudson causing the injuries on NXT last night, as according to a fan video taken from the show yesterday, Amari Miller was stretchered away following her match with Lash Legend. Fans in attendance reportedly noted that Amari may have taken a bad bump to her head or neck, and as of writing, there is currently no note on her status. A speedy recovery to Miller if she is indeed injured. Fingers crossed she's fine though. And now hot tag to Tempest for his review of that show.
See his vest made with real gorilla chest. What's going on, WrestleTalk friends and fans? Tempest is back with another review of NXT 2.0 in about 5 minutes. So this show kicked off with a tag team match pitting Braun Breaker and Tommaso Ciampa wearing matching singlets, that was a bit odd, against the Dirty Dogs, and the return of Bobby Roode's glorious music, even if it was only for 5 seconds. One of the best songs that they have, and they refuse to play it. These guys are pros, so this match was pretty fun, even if it was a little bit strange for Braun Breaker and Tommaso Ciampa to beat the invading forces of the Dirty Dogs, with Tommaso Ciampa pinning Dolph Ziggler. This later set up a 3-way match for the NXT title at next week's Roadblock event, as Braun Breaker defends the title against Tommaso Ciampa and Dolph Ziggler, so this match accomplished its goals. It gets a 4 out of 5 and was a fun way to open the show. We then got a solid in-ring promo from LA Knight, where he basically just said that he's going to be the last man standing against Grayson Waller in their last man standing match next week. LA Knight is a good promo. This was a good promo. This gets a 3 out of 5. We then got a first round match in the Women's Dusty Cup as Dakota Kai and Wendy Chu took on Indy Hartwell and Persia Pirotta. The story of this match was that Persia Pirotta wasn't focused, as she was distracted by the mere thought of Duke Hudson, who appeared to her in the locker room after the match, which begs the question, why is Duke Hudson allowed in the women's locker room? Wendy Chu had a lot of comedy spots in this match. Whether you think they were effective is up to you, but she and Dakota Kai were able to develop some tag team chemistry and pull off the win in this match. It wasn't a very long match, but it was solid, and a tournament match always has higher stakes than what we would see otherwise. This gets a 3 out of 5, a solid time. What wasn't a solid time though was the next match, as Lash Legend took on Amari Miller, her former tag team partner from last week. This was Lash Legend's first singles match in NXT, and while it wasn't a complete disaster, Amari Miller was stretchered out after the match. I hope she's okay. Lash called out Nikita Lyons after the match, so at least we have that to look forward to. We found out that Brooks Jensen is actually a virgin. in canon. We then had our next match of Walter versus Solo Sikoa, a really fun match, but hey, it's Walter, you already knew that. Solo Sikoa was able to get a lot of offense in this match, hitting his Samoa drop and a number of super kicks, but he missed his big frog splash, and Walter killed him to death with power bombs. This was a very fun match. I love Walter, I always will. Since it seems Dolph Ziggler's getting his title shot at Roadblock rather than Stand and Deliver, maybe Walter will be the one that faces Braun Breaker at the Big Show WrestleMania weekend. That sounds like the best match possible, so I guess it makes sense. Just seems a little bit rushed to me. But still, this was a very fun match. This gets a 4 out of 5, one of the better things on the show. We then had Draco Anthony taking on Harlan. I still can't make heads or tails of this whole Harlan-Joe Gacy thing. They've been running as a team for about 6 months now, and I really haven't seen any progression from the two of them as characters, so I don't quite have as much patience for matches like this, but Harlan was able to get the win over Draco Anthony in a fairly quick match. He did a cool pin though, kind of like crossed his arms over his neck. It was neat. After the match, Harlan picked up Draco Anthony and hugged him, and Draco Anthony was confused. You and me both, pal. We then had the next match in the Women's Dusty Cup as Cora Jade and Raquel Gonzalez took on Yulisa Leon and Valentina Feroz. The big spot of this whole match was Valentina Feroz getting absolutely launched outside the ring and caught by Raquel Gonzalez. This was one of the most impressive dive spots that I've seen in a very long time. But eventually Raquel Gonzalez was able to hit her big choke bomb on Yulisa Leon before slamming Cora Jade onto her and allowing Cora Jade to get the pin. A very nice heartwarming moment between this new team of suddenly best friends. They were very chummy on this show. Curing your fear of heights will do that to you. This was another fun match. I expect Raquel and Cora to go very far in this tournament. This gets a 3 out of 5, and they should be having longer and better and more fun matches in the weeks to come. Lots to look forward to. We then had Andre Chase taking on Von Wagner's new vest. It finally happened. Von Wagner finally got slightly less shitty ring gear. He's still got the same shitty music though. Nothing really happened in this match until Bodie Hayward and Robert Stone got into things on the outside, leading to Von Wagner taking out Bodie Hayward and eventually getting the win over Andre Chase. This officially is the current NXT 2.0 rivalry that I give the least amount of a shit about. But then we had the main event as Pete Dunne challenged Carmelo Hayes for the NXT North American Championship in a fantabulous match. Carmelo Hayes continues to be the best thing about NXT 2.0, and I don't think there's really any competition for that spot at this point. He's been one of the best NXT North American champions in recent memory, actually getting to win matches on TV. Wow, what a novel concept! Hayes pulled out another really good match here against Pete Dunne. Not surprising, as Dunne is one of the best wrestlers that NXT has to offer, although I didn't think we needed the interference spot from Trick Williams as we got close to the end of this match, giving Carmelo Hayes a way to win, but honestly, Carmelo Hayes is good enough now that I think he can just beat some of these stars clean. But Hayes got the win with the leg drop in a 4 out of 5 match, and then afterwards let everyone know that at Stand and Deliver, he would be defending the title in a ladder match. We don't know who's going to be competing in that ladder match, but NXT North American Championship ladder matches are always good, and I'm sure this one's going to keep up that standard. This was a pretty fun episode of NXT, all things considered. There were good matches, and they set up a lot for next week's Roadblock event, a show that has a card that looks a lot more like what I thought the Stand and Deliver card would look like, but I guess that just means we're going to continue to build new matches for that show, and who doesn't love new matches? That is, of course, if all of these matches have clean finishes and none of them require rematches. But that just about wraps it up from me. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this week's show, make sure you go over to WrestleTalk Podcast later on today, where myself and Chopper Pete will be breaking down the entire episode of NXT in complete detail. Until then, take care and stay beautiful, and remember that LIW is fine.